Thank you, everybody. My name is Jammie Niemeyer. I am from Granite Falls, Minnesota. I've lived there for about since 1989. Prior to that, I was in Marshall, Minnesota, and now I've moved to Clitheroe, Minnesota. So I've lived my whole life in Minnesota. So that just kind of gives you one little brief summary there. First of all, I want to say thank you very much to Joyce Tofty for inviting me to share my artwork and to be able to speak here for the second annual Overcoming Anti-Racism Satellite Conference in partnership with FREC. I can't tell you how much this is a big deal for me. It's a very big deal. In the last couple years, I have made a big change in my life and for myself. I have decided that I can accept who I am. I accept that I am an African American. And I say this due to the fact that I am born into a family with in an all white area. My entire family is white. My biological father is Black, but I had never met him. And so everyone around me since I was young has always been white. So I know nothing about the African American culture, anything like that. But in saying that, I definitely know racism. I have dealt with it firsthand from people in the neighborhoods, people I don't know, from my own family. And instead of embracing myself and embracing being an African American and being proud of who I was, I went the opposite direction. I did everything that I could to fit in, to try to be like everyone else, because I thought that's what I needed to do. And for a very long time, I thought I was, at least for myself, I did. The story would start when I was 6 years old. I didn't really realize anything any different. I didn't notice that my skin was different. I didn't notice really that, I just knew I was a kid, It's like I went to the playground. My mother had dropped me off at the playground, and it's weird because I had actually read this story and I was like, oh my God, I can relate. And then I felt a little hurt inside to know that things like this that I'm going to tell you about still happen in 2022. So I was 6 years old, went to the park, and I'm playing, having fun. There's another little girl there, and we're going up and down the slide and running around, and no big deal, right? We're having fun because that's what kids do. We, as children, we do not have that marker of the difference of anything in someone. That's imprinted by the adults. Children see when you're happy. That is what they look at. Well, we were playing, we were having fun. All of a sudden, this lady comes running over, just freaking out, just screaming her head off, grabs her daughter. And I'm just kind of like, what's going on? I have no idea what's going on or why. But as she's leaving, she's telling her daughter that you can't play with her kind. You can't play with her kind. And I was like, what kind am I? What is this? I don't understand. And that was the full dose into the start of realizing how different I really was and how racism had such a huge impact on my life and who I am. And in later years, I lived in, like, it was down in Southwest Minnesota and Marshall. So there were a few, because of the college, a few African Americans, maybe a few Asian, things like that, different nationalities that were there. But it wasn't like we were connected, and the common misconception is that just because you're an African American, you're supposed to all know each other, like, this link up in the brain that there's another Black person here, or there's another African American here. Obviously, you know each other. And that's not the case. That is not how the world works. I didn't know any of them. I wasn't friends with any of them. They lived a different life than I did. I never knew anything about the African American culture, like I had said. So the other families, there was, I think, about 2 back then. And they lived as African Americans. So they, that's a whole family. And so they had their heritage down, and they were doing those things. And here I am, this little scrawny, girl, that poor, no money, messy, just this big mound of hair that I had. And hated brushing it, absolutely hated. I would cry all the time. And so it was always, well, we need to find somebody that can do something with that hair. And so, of course, the only thing to do is ask the only Black person there. That was what my mother had thought to do. And, and in doing that, I realized that I didn't fit in there either. And that it doesn't matter which race you're from. Racism itself can be from any side. It's not just against African Americans. It's not just it's against everybody when it comes to that. And it shouldn't be that way. We all should be accepting who we are, what we do for other people, and being able to live in the world together. And so, I kept looking at things, and I did so much of being opposite to try to live in the world that I was in, which was all white. So I wouldn't allow myself to listen to any music that could be construed as Black music. I would not watch any movies that had any Black actors or narrative in it at all. Because every time I would do anything like that, the people I was around would be like, oh, so you are one of those. And at that time, I didn't want that. I didn't want to be that. I wanted to be like everybody else. And I couldn't understand why, when I didn't make the choice to be who I was. I didn't make the choice for the color that I have, that my hair is curly, that I had to wear glasses those are not things that I made choices of. And so I couldn't figure out why that was so hard for everybody else to accept. And so I put that on myself at a very young age, that I needed to try to adapt to everything. And I would excuse so many things that people would say to me, because I was like, they're just, it's just ignorance. It's no big deal. Well, guess what? It is a big deal. We should not be doing those things and treating others that way. It's very hard for any person that has dealt with any racism, any bullying, any of those things, to be able to enjoy themselves, to live in their own bodies, to live in their own minds, when we walk around tearing each other down. And There would be numerous things, whether it was I'm sitting in the classroom and the kid behind me has to throw pencils in my hair because they get caught, because that's funny. And then there was so many different times that I would have people come up to me and like, can I touch your hair? Why do you need to touch my hair? I don't get it. It's hair. You have hair. Touch your own hair. You know, I was so like, I don't understand. Why is this even a thing? I don't get it. But there were so many things that would come up like that it got to the point where I started to get really bitter and angry with myself because I wanted so bad to be like everybody else. I went to the extreme of bleaching taking the little metal scrubbers and putting bleach on them and trying to scrub my color off so that I could be the same as everyone else. And of course it didn't work, and it didn't change anything. It didn't matter. And as I grew, more things came about for me that I got put into that category of the little black girl. It's the little black girl. She did it. Things would happen, and I was the one that automatically would get picked on, or, you know, you're the one that had to have done that because that's what black people do. And I'm like, no, I didn't, you know, and even in my own family, and this one's a little harder for me to even say, but it did happen. And, you know, I'm going to omit some of the things that were said because we don't want to use that kind of language. But I was with my grandmother and at my grandmother's house, and my step grandfather had been drinking a lot, and was standing and banging outside of the door on the trailer, just banging and banging. And all he's screaming is, "You let that N-word in there. Why can't I come in? You let that N-word in there. Why can't I come in?" And my grandma sat with me and she just rocked me and said, "Just ignore him. It's okay, Jammie." But as I got older, more would come. And the more that came, the more I realized and thought, I am so different and nobody wants me or cares about me or, you know, can accept me for who I am. And that just made me more confused on who I was and what I stood for. Then a little while longer, we ended up moving to Granite Falls in 1989. And at that time, there were no Black people, no African Americans in the town at all. There was some Native Americans, and I think maybe a couple Asian people that were in the school, but it was not conducive to my being there in any way. When we got to the school, I remember the first lyceum we had, the big grouping that we all have to go into. And I didn't know what we were getting called up there for. I was like, okay, so we got to go. Well, it was for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And, you know, I'm like, okay, you know, I'm a high school, you know, I'm in high school. I mean, I don't want to sit through that any more than anybody else does. You know, I'm like, can I please do something else? But here I've got all these people in school that are sitting and yelling at me. They're all angry at me because they never had to have any of those things before. They never had to celebrate Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday or any of that. And then all of a sudden it was. So then I became a huge target, because we wouldn't have had to do this if it wasn't for you. We would never have to worry about any of this stuff if it wasn't for you. And that began the journey of where other people thought that I belonged. I would walk downtown and people would drive to a walking pace, staring at me. Others driving past, screaming swear words, the N-word out their windows. Numerous times of, getting picked on and things like bags of crap being put in my locker, saying N-word, go home, or the go back to Africa. Or I would go downtown and walk through the stores, and one store after another, people would follow me through the stores, follow me where I went, what I touched, to make sure I wasn't stealing anything, because in their minds, that's what my kind did. And so that became a huge, huge problem for me. We then, I would go into different places, and the assumption was that as I'm walking there, people are looking at me already going, okay, we need to make sure we keep track of what she's doing. I don't want her talking to my daughter. I don't want her around my son. I don't want her sitting by me. And that was even going to church. I was not allowed to sit by anybody. There would be rows between where I would sit next to someone, because they were worried they were going to catch my black. And that this was the thing that was going to ruin them, that I was going to ruin their town, because I was going to be crawling in their windows and stealing their stuff from them, and all of that, just because my skin is darker. I never have had any problems with any of that stuff as far as doing things wrong. But yet I did, because of what they saw, because of what they thought of me. So most of the kids in school were very apprehensive about ever talking to me or coming up to me or being anywhere near me, because of how it would make them look to their friends, to their families. So very few wanted to be around me. I was a track sprinter athlete when I was younger, and I loved it. And I had come from Marshall, and I was a runner. And so that was my thing. I was like, sweet, I can do this. And I love it. But doing that also came with the consequence of being known as the little black girl that could run. And so I didn't have any of the group of friends that I thought I would have, until all of a sudden I was running in track and I was making those people look good. It was, now we can be friends with her because she will make us look good. Or I would be there. I would give them some sort of status because of the fact that I was good at that. But as soon as track season was over, they wouldn't talk to me ever. And that was an ongoing thing. It was, the common thing being told, no one's going to want you. My friends were dating and doing things like that. And it was, you're never going to get anybody to go out with you. Nobody wants your kind. And the number of times I've heard your kind is absolutely amazing. It's just unreal. I went to one of the stores downtown. I'm not going to say which store, and granted, it's no longer there anyways. But I went downtown, and I'm like, okay, well, I was looking for something, so I went into the store, and then the lady that was working there was trying to be nice to me, and I know that. But she walks up to me and she's like, oh my gosh, I just have to tell you this. And I'm like, oh, okay, all right, what? She's like, I just saw the best Whoopi Goldberg movie ever. And I'm like, what? What does that have to do with me? I'm like, oh, I'm like, literally, I looked at her, I'm like, okay, good for you. And it's like, there was no reason. I'm like, do you really not understand that that's not the way it works? Do you like everyone that is your race? Do you like everyone? No, but it shouldn't be brought down to the race of anything. That's the deal, is it should be about who the people are, what they represent, and how they treat other people. And I feel very strongly about that, and I always have, and I always will. And so years, things went on. I got married, which was a huge deal, of course, because, my ex-husband was white, or is white. He's still white. It's not like that went away. And so that was a hard deal. And so I went through some really bad times with that, of not being accepted by his family, due to the fact that I was not white, and that my kind was not to be trusted. My kind was meant for only one purpose. And so there was that stigmatism that was put on. And then I had my first daughter. And it makes me sad now when I think about it, because all I could think of, all I had in my head when I was having her was, please let her be white. Please let her be white, so she doesn't have to go through this. I don't want my children to feel the way I do about myself and about who they are. That, I think, that moment was one of the toughest to realize, for all of these years now past, that was something that I had a problem with. I would have never done this kind of a video thing where I can see myself, because I avoided mirrors. And as you can see, this happens a lot, and I tuck my arms and hands down because I cover myself. I try not to, but right now, since I'm sitting, it's worse. I'm an animated person, so usually this thing is going on a lot more. But it was something that I was very aware of. I was very aware that was something that I was doing, because for myself, I hated myself. I hated who I was. I hated the way I looked. Trying to be something that everybody else wanted. If I became this Betty Crocker cutout of, I'm going to do this, I'll do what they want and everything, then it'll be fine. I'll fit in, I'll be the same. And it still wasn't that way. And it was like that no matter what. I mean, when I worked as a manager at Walmart, and there were numerous times that different things came up, but the one time there was this lady that came in, and she got all angry because she felt that one of the associates was being racist. And she had told them that there was no way that there ever was going to be anything any different than that, because that's all we know. That's everybody's racist around here, and they don't care. And I got called up front, and I walked up front, and the lady looked at me and her jaw dropped. And then she proceeded to swear at me about how horrible it was that I would put myself in a situation where I was allowing myself to be used to perpetuate the racism that they had going on. So even being there was still an issue for different races. When I worked at Hardee's as a manager, I had a mother that was irate. She called me on the phone, screaming and swearing about her daughter and how she was being treated, that someone had been being racist to her, and all of those things. And I asked her, I said, will you please come in so I can talk to you? I would like to talk to you. And she did. And again, much surprise, because she did not realize that I was Black. And from that day forward, her daughter, who is absolutely a wonderful, wonderful girl, who I've absolutely adored my whole life, seeing her grow up, who was able to embrace her ethnicity and overcome a lot of hurdles to get where she was going. It was me being able to talk to her and let her know, yeah, there may be some of that there here, but believe in who you are, and you have a mother that cares about you and wants to help you be who you are. So that was a huge thing for the world at that time. And that was, I think I was 16 at that time when that happened. And I spent a lot of time throughout my high school career, and probably most of my early 20s, just crying, wishing I could change my race. And that was all due to the fact that people felt that racism was okay. It was okay to treat another human being that way. It was okay to call them the N-word and every other name that could be considered that. And the jokes of, oh, what are we having for lunch? Are we having chicken and watermelon? And it's like, are you kidding me? Yes, I like chicken and I do like watermelon, but it has nothing to do with the fact that I'm Black. It doesn't. It just has to do with that's what I like. But the thing is, we as human beings have that. When we hear something, we automatically make that connection and then put that on those other people, when what we should be doing is checking ourselves and making sure we're not doing that to other people, that we're the ones that want to perpetuate the good and move away from the racism that's out there. And how else do you teach others not to be racist? Is, for me, doing this and sharing my story and teaching others that you need to learn to accept yourself. You need to learn to find out more about your heritage, where you come from, what there is out there, because you're not taught that. We're not taught those things in school, especially in this area. There is none of that. I've realized more of that now, as I have now, moved into accepting who I am, which has been now about 2.5 years. I put in a DNA test, and I had put in for a grant at Southwest Minnesota Art Council in Marshall. And my project was diversity, eye on growth. And what I did was I went through and decided that I wanted to learn about African Americans. I wanted to learn about the people that were out there that did things to pave the way, to shut down racism, to make it so that all races could be doing things together. When I started reading about segregation and how so many different celebrities, so many different, people had went through the things that they did, being, terrified out of all of the different things that were happening out there. They just, it was insane. Absolutely insane. So now I took that chance to find out about myself. So this last winter, I went to Arizona and I met my cousin. I found a DNA match, and I met my cousin. And it was the first time in my entire life that someone with my own blood had the same skin tone as me. And I was overcome with immense feelings. Being able to put my hand next to someone that was my same blood, that was the same color, was so overwhelming. I wish that part of things never had to be there, that all you would ever have to think about is the love that you receive and that you can give others, versus all of the things that happen because you're not like others. The Eye on Diversity project opened my eyes to so many different things. So many things that I realized that I missed out on and learning about, and others learning about, that I feel that, if you have the opportunity to start looking at different things and checking people's stories out, find out where they came from, what they did, how they got there, and I find that, my story, of course, there's a ton more that goes with it, but my story and my struggles were not as bad as some others were, that paved the way for my generation now to be able to even have a conference like this, because that would have been unheard of before. So being able to take those steps to get to this point is absolutely amazing. The thing that scares me is that it still has taken us to get to this point. Behind me here, I'll show you. Not sure if you see this and you recognize who this is. This is one of my doodles I did. It's a tribute to George Floyd. This will be going to Joyce for the anti-racism conference. George Floyd's death brought forth a slew of feelings from every side, from everyone that may not have seen or knew what was going on before. The things that were being said to people of a different race, the things that were being done to people of a different race. Seeing George Floyd laying on the ground with someone pressing on his chest, not being able to breathe, not giving the opportunity for the man, no matter what someone has done, it should never end that way. There's no reason for violence. There's no reason for that. Everything is understanding. Take the time to start understanding why someone is doing something or being the way they are, not jumping in and adding to it as the other officers may have done at that point. And the outrage that happened because of it resonated throughout the entire world, not just the US. Because what they saw and what was happening was something that they had put away, thinking that it was not that bad anymore. That now that everybody's got their votes, everybody's able to go here, they're not put aside away from everybody else, that then it's done and over with. Well, everybody's eyes are open again. And it's not done and over with. The racism is still there, heavy and hard. And for people that are here, our jobs need to be to stand up and let people know that we do not need to be that way. We don't need to treat each other that way. We need to learn about each other and help each other grow, because that's what's going to make the world a better place for the long run of our children, the next generation of children. Because if you don't break that cycle, it'll keep going. And I know this because I think it was about just before I had put out the diversity ion growth project, I had stopped at the gas station, and there was a gentleman that was coming out the door, and then I was going in, and then there was a lady that was behind me. So I held the door for the guy that was coming out, and then I was going to go in, but there was a lady behind me, so I was going to let her go in front of me. And she glared at me, and she grabbed the other door, walked away, and she's like, I'm not letting her kind touch anything I touch. And it was like, this is still here. It's still here. That shouldn't be a thing. Because underneath it all, we are the same. If something happens and you need to get blood, it doesn't matter what the skin color is, does it? It doesn't. The blood is the same. You need it because that's what you need at that time. So those things are the things that you should be thinking about. The skin is just surface deep. You need to, I lost my husband in 2017. And he needed an organ. He needed a pancreas, and then he needed a kidney. And do you think that in all of that time that I was thinking, man, I hope I don't get this race's kidney or whatever? No, it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. So why does it matter so much when it comes to us just walking around and being around each other? The essential things that we need in our body are interchangeable with whatever nationality, whatever race, whatever, stature you have. They're interchangeable. We're human beings. So that's where I would ask that people would start to look for and be more mindful of those things than anything else. I also am part of the Cultural Diversity Council of the Upper Minnesota River Valley. And the president of that is Deborah Lee Fader. And so she has some things that she has put together. I would love to be able to see more done with this. I enjoy being able to do my art and to bring faces forward for people to look at and see, and maybe give a little bit of an idea of what they were about. My work was to be able to bring the 44 people that I saw that touched my life in some way. And I chose 44 because it took till our 44th president to get to someone that was an African American. And it took me, and I turned 44 that same year. And it took me till I was 44 to realize that I'm an African American. I am white. I am a white American. I am an American, and I am who I am. And that is the thing that I needed to understand and be able to love myself and who I am. And that's the gift that I wish I could give others, is that everyone would be able to understand that about themselves and other people. We all have things that we can help other people learn and grow. And the more we start focusing on the positives of all of the things that everybody has, the better we will be. So I would really love to see that happening and move forward with that. Does anybody have any questions? One of the things that I would say for, let's see, the people that are from my generation, is to, I think they need to learn and accept who they are, and go back and think about the way things were and where they came and where they can go and what they can teach their children and their grandchildren. And I say grandchildren because I'm 46 now. So a lot of my generation now has had children. And I think when you live in a world where you don't have that, you're living in that little slice of area of it just being you, you just kind of have to branch out on that. If you have someone in your area that's new, or is not sure of things that are going on, help them. A lot of it has more to do with all of us being aware of other people's situations and not being so absorbed in our own. Because a lot of the times that's what happens. We're so absorbed in our own stuff, we don't look to see that anyone else is struggling in that way. And the thing is that, like when I say racism isn't just about being African American. I have a friend that lived down south, and she's white and lived around mainly round Blacks. And that was something that she went through the same issues. And so the adapting to that is that no matter what race you are, you need to start learning to accept others. My cousin, the one that I went and met, when he was telling me about the story of his life, he was not accepted because he wasn't Black and he wasn't white. He's a mixture just like I am. So he wasn't Black enough to be with the African Americans, and he wasn't white enough to be with the whites. So he kind of got picked on from both sides. And so really, it's just something that we all need to work towards, the accepting each other for who we are. And there is never a good answer for any of that as far as where or when it's going to stop, except for people like Joyce and others who are helping to show that it is still out there, that it is still a struggle, that these are things that we need to make changes on, because we don't want the next generations to be going through this. We want everyone to be able to be equal when they are going in for a job interview or going to fill out their college applications or their medical. Those are things that should be across the board for everyone. And so for us, myself included, the goal is to be able to help other people get to that point. There was a question about, I think it was my art presentation.
Yeah,
and where
says, what's your next art projects? Is it a continuation of your first showing?
Okay, my next project's actually what I wanted to do, because I do a lot of different art. I'm actually, now since I've moved to Clitheroe, I'm in a different sector, so I got to get with a different art group up here. But I started wood burning, and so I would like to do. I'm doing like an elf series with that. But the reason being, there are so many different things. So many different things that I just am excited about. I get so excited about so many different art things that there's anytime there's stuff to do, I just want to do anything and everything. But there's also with the cultural diversity, I have wanted to do more with different series of different ethnicities, and not just ethnicities, but also disabilities. I work with, I also relate on mental health issues, because that's also something that I have dealt with and deal with on a daily basis. So, mental health is a huge thing. Disabilities are also something that I am have a very strong passion for. So what will be my next series? I'm not 100% sure yet on that, because I have so many that I want to do. There's, I look at how far women have come throughout all of the years. The fact that Joyce is able to do this conference, that is something that, 15, 20 years ago would have been harder for someone to do. And look at us now, so we will be able to see more of that, and my art will reflect what comes with the times. I will always try to stay current with some of the different things that are going on when it comes to that, so that people can see it. I feel like my art and being able to show that gives that more of a face to and reality to it. So I'm hoping to be able to do more of those things. But my next series will be a wood burn series, just because I want to show a different, different side of myself. I do have I will be on PBS postcards coming up this spring. You'll be able to see a lot of the different work that I do up here at my studio. And so I'll be doing a lot more. And if there's anybody out there that has ideas, things that they'd like to see, I absolutely would love to know. Contact me. I think my stuff should be out there. It's fairly easy to find. I'm pretty easy to find, but for the most part, I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing, and I'm growing every day as a person and learning more about my heritage on all sides, and accepting who I am and loving who I'm going to be in the future, and doing what I can to help others get to that point too.
We probably have time for one more question. So Maria asked, now that you see yourself as a Black woman and are proud of that, what changed inside of you?
Oh, what changed it? It was the accepting and letting go. So it was the accepting finally that I am African American, and that it's okay for me to be, that I don't need to have people make the judgment on who I am because of my race. And that I know that I have people that love me and care about me for who I am. And that I can also help others be able to accept who they are and know that you can overcome racism, you can overcome all of the diversity. You are able to do those things once you accept yourself for who you are.
Well, thank you so much for taking this time with us today, Jammie. I think it's been moving for everyone. I will say personally, this is probably one of the most impactful of our series for me, but that's because me and you have a very shared lived experience. We know what it's like to be the only in a predominantly white space for extended periods of time, and what that feels like, and unpacking a lot of that emotional labor that goes into existing in those spaces and finding self-identity. So I really appreciate your truth, embracing the power of truth telling for the conference, and sharing your authentic truth with all of us.
Yes, absolutely. I thank you very much, Joyce, for having me. And I thank everybody else for having me also. If there's anything that you guys ever want, you got questions or are looking for anything, I'm here, and you just get a hold of me on Facebook if there's something that you like. The whole art series that I have for the Diversity Eye on Growth is also on sale for people to buy. They're $125 each.
Mm-hmm. And if you have not gotten a chance to check out that series was a part of our conference yesterday. This entire conference is pre-recorded. And so if you would like to watch the virtual gallery and artist talked with Jammie Niemeyer, you can access that there. Thank you all again for joining us. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.